Greetings and welcome to the basement. Continuing on with our efforts to learn the Unity UI system by creating an idle game using Playmaker, we're going to take a look at our icons. We need some kind of visualization to show the player progress as they buy upgrades. Now, what I want to do is I want all of these icons to be gone when we start up, and then with the first purchase, greetings and welcome to the basement. Continuing on with our efforts to learn the Unity UI system by creating an idle game using Playmaker, we're going to take a look at our icons. We need some kind of visualization to show the player progress as they buy upgrades. Now, what I want to do is I want all of these icons to be gone when we start up, and then with the first purchase, we'll get an icon, and then for every 10 icons or every 10 purchases, we get a new icon. So 1 through 9, we'll have one icon. 10 through 19, we'll have another icon, so on and so forth. So the question becomes, how do we want to approach this? What is the best way of making these things disappear and reappear? And like most things with game development, well, there's quite a few different ways we can do this. There is one way that most definitely is not the correct way, and that is to destroy/create things as needed. Creating a game object, especially something as heavy as a UI element, is very expensive. Sometimes you have to do it, but if you can possibly avoid it, you should. It's one of the few pre-optimization things that I advocate for. If you can avoid creation and destruction of objects at runtime, do so. Now, with that, how can we actually make these things disappear? Well, with Unity, we've got two main ways. One is that we can disable the game component that handles the visualization. So I've got one of the quills selected. Switch over the scene so we can see this a little bit better. I've got a quill selected, and I can disable the image component, and that makes the quill disappear and reappear once I re-enable the image component. I can also just flat out disable the game object and re-enable the game object. What is the difference between these two? Disabling the image component leaves all of the other components present, which in this particular case doesn't matter. But in other scenarios, this could be an issue. If we wanted the player to be able to click on these and give just some little bit of visual fluff if the user clicks on them, well, we wouldn't want to just disable the image component, because then the user would still be able to click in this empty spot and get the effect, and that would look weird. By disabling the game object, well, it's disabled. It effectively is not there until we re-enable the game object. The disadvantage to that approach is a disabled game object cannot be found. When you do game object .find, it's not going to find disabled game objects, so that is a disadvantage to that approach. In this case, since we're going to be able to set up a variable that will store these game objects at edit time instead of having to find them at runtime, that's not an issue. Also, if we come over here to take a look at our actions, there's no real effective way to disable a component. I mean, I can come in here to game object, I can destroy a component, but I definitely don't want to destroy the component, the image component. That would definitely not be what I want. So there's no real good options there. Unity game or Unity object, likewise, doesn't really have much of anything in us there. Mouse, behave yourself. And so really the most effective way is to activate or deactivate the game object. In fact, that happens to be the first option here. Activate game object. Activates, deactivates a game object. That is exactly what we need. It's straightforward, so that's what we're going to do. That is the action that we will take. Now we got to think about how we're going to set this up. One thing that I could do is I could use the mother of all switch statements. Now, you'll notice, of course, that I've made a small modification to the state machine. Rather than having purchase potion do the update cost, it's now upon finished going over to update potion icons. Same thing with purchase quill. It's going over to update quill icons. And this is because, that seems like the logical flow here. We finish our purchase state, we move on to the state in which we're updating our icons, and then from there we'll move on to updating our cost. Now, what I could do, as I was mentioning, I could do the mother of all switch statements. So I could come over here to logic, there we go, and come down here to int switch, and then say, okay, I have, oops, if I can type correctly, that would be lovely. I have 10 switches. And in each one of these switches, I could say, okay, I could calculate this out. I could take the total number of potions, divide it by 10, stuff that in an integer. And if I have, if it's equal to 10, because it will have to be equal to 10 at some point, if I make sure that oops, none. There we go. So I would compare AutoQuill. And I would say, okay, well, if AutoQuill is equal to this amount, then do this event and this amount and do that event, And then in each one of those events, I would link, each one of those events would be responsible for turning on one of these icons. That would be so messy. I mean, I'd have 10 arrows coming out of here to 10 different states. And then all 10 of those states would have to either recombine down to one state, or each one of those would have to call update costs. And oh my gosh, that's a mess. So no, I do not, in fact, want the mother of all switch statements. Rather, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an array of these icons, and then I'm going to divide my quill count, or in this case, my potion count, to see which of these indices should I access. Now, I've already set this up for potions, at least for the variable part. So if I go in here into my variables, you'll see I have a potion icon list that is of data type array. I have specified that it is an array of game objects, that it has a size of 10, and then in each one of these elements, I drug in the image reference. If I was going to do this for my quill list, I would just simply come down here and say quill icon list, variable type of array. Where'd you go? There you are. Create the variable. Array type is game object. I have 10 of these elements. And then I would come over here and drag these over. I'm not actually going to set that up completely. I will do that off camera. Oops. And so this gives me the ability to easily reference any of these images. Now let's think about logic. I want to figure out, based on the number of potions I have, which indice I need to turn on. And I'm not going to worry about whether or not it's already on. Turning something on that's already on is not going to matter. So I'm not going to worry about trying to detect whether or not something's already turned on. It's just, if my indice is this, I'm going to turn it on. Every time I buy a potion, I will check and turn on something, even if it's already on. So what I need to do is I need an Int Operator, because this is the only way that I can divide. So I will divide my speed potion by 10. Now remember, we're abusing a little aspect of the C# programming language here, in that 11 divided by 10 is 1. 12 divided by 10 is 1. Remember, when we do integer division, we drop the decimal. So speed potion divided by 10, and I will store this in an index variable, which I had already created. If that's not already created, you can also just do a new variable as well. Now, I do want to sanity check this, and I'm going to sanity check it with the int clamp operation, which again is under math. And the reason why I want to do this is while there shouldn't be any possibility that this is a negative number, it still might be. And I'd really rather not have my program crash from an exception. And there's a much greater chance, if someone actually plays this game long enough, that I will have more than 99 speed potions. The moment I get 100 speed potions, 100 divided by 10 is 10. I only have 10 elements in my array, meaning my valid indices are 0 through 9. If I try to access index 10, crash. So I need to make sure that this value is clamped between 0 and 9. Next, you cannot directly get an array element. You cannot directly manipulate, I should say, an array element, so I need to do an array get, which again is under the array options here. And the array I'm going to get this from is potion icon list. My index will be the index variable. And then I need to store this. I've created already a current icon variable. You can just do a new variable here if you need to. So I've got a current icon. I'm just going to store it in there. And now I can disable, or actually enable, this object. So I'll come over here to game object, activate game object, drag that in. I will specify a variable, current icon. I don't need this to be recursive, and activate it. And then upon being done with all of that, I need to make sure I do my send event. And this needs to update cost. And I'm going to put it in my comment. Raises update cost, so that way I know it's doing that. One last thing we need to do before testing this. So I need to make these not visible by default. So I'm going to grab all of the images, go to my inspector, and disable them. Auto quills, like I said, I'm going to do that one off camera. Coming back here to Playmaker, I'm going to make sure that I have some scrolls to start off with, because again, I have no intentions of actually clicking that much. I've got 500. Actually, you know what? Let's give myself a lot of scrolls so I can test this effectively. And let's see what happens when we hit the play button. So I've got no speed potions, no icons visible, as expected. Buy a speed potion. One potion shows up. So far, so good. I have bought up to 9 speed potions, and I still just have 1 icon, as expected. Now I should get 2 icons. Yay. Switch over to buying them 5 at a time. Now I've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and that's it. Nothing should go wrong when I buy the 100th, and yes, that is correct. So my little visualization now works. And through the magic of editing, I will complete the auto quills off camera. And welcome back. Through the magic of editing, our quills are now working as intended. Or are they? There's a bug. Actually, there's 2 bugs we're going to take a look at. But in general, things are in fact working as intended. So basically the exact same logic. I'm dividing my quill count by 10, clamping it, getting the array, etc., etc., etc. And let's see how this works. And so turn my stats off. We'll be taking a look at that in a moment. Okay, so I buy 1 quill, and there we go. Quill icon shows up. I now have 11 quills, and I have 2 icons. And you're probably noticing something. something that's not quite right. If I am getting, in theory, 2.75 scrolls per second, why is that number not changing? Mysterious. Actually, not too mysterious. Let's just go ahead and finish off with our icons here, because there's actually a bug involved with the icons. So if I, this button to buy. Go through buy, okay, 21, another icon, another, and things do not break. And there we go. Now it's suddenly working. It's like, geez, that was strange. But let's take a look at the other bug that we have. Speed potions, 0. I'm going to buy 100 of them at a time, so I should have all of my icons filled up. Oh. Well, maybe not. So what is going on? We got 2 bugs here. Let's take a look. Let me stop and restart. Let's take a look at the quill bug first. Okay, so I should be getting 1 scroll per second. This digit is obviously not changing. Why? It's because we're using floating point numbers. That is the answer. You have to keep in mind that a floating point number is stored approximately. It's not stored exactly. And so what's happening here is that what we're trying to add per frame is too small. Let's bring the stats back up. I am currently running at somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 12,000 frames per second. It bounces around there a little bit. Just for the sake of argument, let's say that I'm running at 10,000. No, not 10,000. 1,000. I can count, I promise. 10,000 frames per second. Dear Lord, how powerful is my machine? No, so I'm running at 1,000 frames per second. That means every 1,000th of a second, I am trying to add 1,000th of a value to this number. It can't track that. 1,000th, 0.001 is so small compared to the number 5 million, or technically 4 million, that it just basically gets ignored. The system's like, yeah, that is far too small for me to actually worry about, and I don't have any precisions down here. You know, I don't even have any information in these numbers down here, so that kind of precision does not matter. Same thing, actually, well, nope, okay, this is going to work now. Actually, if I move my scrolls up to 50 million, I'll also break my book as well. Now, if I go in here to variables, scrolls, okay, let's change this to 50 million. 50. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There we go, 5E, 07. Come back over here. Oh, yeah, and now our click is disabled. Again, because, you know, the magnitude. I have 50 million, all of these zeros. The floating point storage representation goes, yeah, 1? I don't care about 1. I'm not going to add in all of this additional information just for that one little bit of info. And so it doesn't work. It's not until I get, it's even the, there we go. I had to get up to 6 per, change of 6 per for 50 million to care. And I'm going to have to get up pretty high on this before it will care about these. Eventually, maybe. I'm just going to buy these in groups of 100. There we go. It's starting to fitfully care about it. I'm still not really getting the full amount that I should. There we go. And now it's working. I should be getting 213 per second. Yeah, that looks about right. It looks like that's going up about 100 every half second or so. So yeah, all of that is due to floating point error. Is this an error that I need to worry about fixing? No. There is if for a player to get, again, let's stop, reset. First of all, there's no way a player can legitimately get 50 million at this point. They haven't clicked on anything. So there is no possible way of getting this legitimately. And to click on this 50 million times, or no, actually I'm back to 5 minutes, to click on this 5 million times before you buy an autoquill. Yes, it's technically possible. Would somebody ever do this? No, and if they encounter a bug on it, you know what? I would send them a letter saying, here's a coupon code for a free copy of our next game because, dear Lord, I have no idea why you did that for so long. Now, the bug that I would address if this wasn't a technical learning experience is this one. This is still not something we'd really have to concern. I mean, let's look at this. I need to get 100, in order to buy 100 speed potions. So let's go buy 100, even 100 autoquills would be even worse. To buy 100 autoquills, I would have to have 505,000 scrolls saved up. Even if I bought up, enough, spend some time upgrading my speed potions here to maybe to the point where I was getting 10 per click, that would still take me, what is that, 505, so 50,000, that would still take me 50,000 clicks? If I'm not using an auto clicker, that's going to take a while. Or if I did the reverse and, bought a few autoquills and then waited for that to catch up, let's say I even just, just do 8 of them, because I'm already at 900 scrolls per purchase at this point. That gets me 2 scrolls per second, so it would take roughly 75,000 seconds of just letting this game run. Yeah, not something I'm worried about for a tech demo. It's probably not going to happen. Now, if I was going to release this game, I would fix it. And the fix would be a for loop, which again, you don't have a for loop built in to Playmaker logic. You just kind of have to build it in yourself, which is pretty simple. You have an int compare, comparing an index value to a stop value. The moment that your index is equal to, assuming you're doing a for I equals 0, I is less than 10 type of loop. Obviously, flip these if you're doing a less than, a countdown loop. But the moment that your index value is equal to or greater than your stop value, you stop and you finish up your for loop. Otherwise, as long as it's less than, you go over here and you do things. And then after you're done doing things, you do the int add and, oops, yeah, I should have finished. And then you loop back over. So you just loop back and forth here until you finally gone through all the loops, and then you come over here. And so the fix would be, it's like, okay, every time I buy something, instead of just dividing this by 10, I would divide it by 10 and use that as like a stop value and go through and turn on every potion icon or every quill icon from 0 to whatever my new stopping value is. Every time I bought something. Didn't matter if it's on or not. That would probably be the easiest brute force solution to solving the problem. But given that the intent of this project is to get used to the UI system and get used to the challenges of creating an idle game with Playmaker, that is not a bug that is worth my time to fix. This is not a project that's intended for release. It is not a project intended for submission if you are one of my students. This is a learning project, deliberate practice. And from that point of view, it's done. I can click. I'll actually do the 25 clicks. I can buy a speed potion. I can buy the upgrades. Go back over. Probably should just get rid of project settings, but I'm stubborn. I'm not going to do it. Give myself an auto quill and see that, yes, this is going to go up. Yep. Yeah, it works. It functions. It does exactly what it's supposed to be doing. There's no additional work that I really need to do on this. And there we go. All right.